Ilia Topuria is exactly what professional boxing needs right now. And no, that's not an exaggeration. Don't roll your eyes just yet. There's a lot more logic behind this statement than it might seem at first glance. Boxing, as a sport, is losing its pulse. Too many fighters spend years circling the same opponents, showing up once or twice a year and promising massive rematches that nobody truly cares about anymore. The tempo is gone, the drama has faded, and the new faces that could reignite the audience's passion are nowhere to be found. Topuria, though, is different. He's bold, he's dangerous, and he has that raw, electric energy that keeps fans glued to the screen. His motivation to enter the boxing world makes perfect sense. In the UFC, he has already reached the peak. 2 belts across 2 weight divisions. That's elite status, the summit. And you can already tell that defending his title over and over again doesn't excite him. Topuria is not the kind of guy who wants to hang around one division, smashing contenders who can't match his level. For Ilia, there's only one goal left in MMA, a fight against Islam Makhachev, but on one condition, that Islam captures the welterweight belt. If that happens, Topuria would have the chance to become the first ever triple champion in UFC history. That's the kind of challenge that fires him up. But even that feels like a bonus level. The man has already beaten the game of MMA. While the UFC still figures out whether they want to make that historic fight happen, another story is brewing, and this time, it's in the boxing world. Topuria has started a verbal war with none other than Terence Crawford, the undisputed champion of the world. The punches so far are verbal, but they've already landed hard. Recently, Topuria declared that in a fight between them, Crawford would lose his chin. Terence didn't take that lightly. He fired back, calling Ilia a nobody, saying, "He's not even close to being another Conor McGregor. This is just a money grab. He wants a big payday. We all fight for that. But this guy isn't on my level. He says he could knock me out in the first round? Let him step up and prove it. Right now, he's just a fake." At first glance, this whole situation seems one-sided. Crawford is a seasoned, undefeated boxer, a world champion in 3 weight classes, while Topuria is a pure MMA fighter with 0 professional boxing bouts on his record. But hold on before you jump to conclusions. Yes, Ilia lacks traditional boxing experience. In the UFC, we've seen him take some hits, even against Alexander Volkanovski and Max Holloway, 2 of the best strikers in the game. He's not perfect defensively, but what truly sets him apart isn't his guard, it's his power. The man hits like a freight train. Even through boxing gloves, his punches carry devastating weight. Sure, he may not have Crawford's speed, timing, or technical precision, but he doesn't necessarily need them. In a fight like this, one clean shot can change everything. One mistake from Crawford, one slip-up, and he could find himself on the canvas. Because Tupuria's fists are natural weapons. He can knock out anyone, even if he's outclassed in every other department. That's why this rivalry isn't just empty talk. It's the foundation of something much bigger. A real, watchable feud between 2 combat worlds. And that's exactly what modern combat sports are missing. Real emotion, personal stakes, and the kind of tension that makes headlines. Topuria brings that energy effortlessly. He's got charisma, confidence, and 0 fear of controversy. In a sport where most fighters sound like robots reading PR-approved statements, Ilia says what fans actually think. That's what makes him magnetic. And the more he talks, the clearer it becomes. Ilia Topuria isn't trying to imitate McGregor. He's building his own path. His trash talk isn't just noise. It's strategy. It's how he shifts attention from MMA to boxing, how he opens a new narrative that fans on both sides can argue about endlessly. Because let's be honest, boxing right now needs someone to challenge the status quo. It needs chaos. It needs someone who can bring in the MMA audience. People who love real fights, not polite press conferences. Ilia Topuria is that guy. He's loud, unapologetic, and driven by something that most boxers have long lost: hunger. When Ilia Topuria called out Terence Crawford, most people thought it was just a stunt, another loudmouth MMA guy chasing a payday. But those who follow combat sports closely know this isn't just about money. It's about pride, legacy, and the never-ending debate between 2 worlds that have been talking past each other for years: MMA and boxing. For decades, fight fans have argued endlessly.
MMA supporters love to point out that the best boxers wouldn't survive a minute in the octagon. They'd be taken down, choked out, or pounded on the mat. Meanwhile, boxing purists fire back, mocking UFC fighters for their sloppy footwork and predictable striking. They say MMA fighters are just brawlers who fall apart when they can't shoot for a takedown. It's a cultural divide as deep as any rivalry in sports. And here comes Ilia Topuria right in the middle of it. He's not just another MMA champion. He's a proud representative of the Tage, and he's willing to step into the ring to prove his people's point. In his mind, it's time for a UFC fighter to show that real fighters don't hide behind one style or one set of rules. They fight anywhere, against anyone. In a recent interview with Sports Illustrated, Topuria didn't mince words. Quote, "What bothers me is how many boxers come into our space, talk trash about us, and act like they're above it all. The truth is, a lot of MMA fighters have already tested themselves in boxing, just to challenge their skills. But you never see boxers doing the same. They don't have the guts to enter the cage. They know they'd lose. So let them try before they talk." That quote hit boxing Twitter like a grenade. Some called him delusional. Others, especially younger fans, applauded his courage. But the reality is, Topuria is doing exactly what the sport needs right now: creating tension, igniting discussion, and bringing life back into an industry that's become far too predictable. Crawford, for all his greatness, represents the old guard: pure mastery, calculated skill, and technical perfection. He's the embodiment of boxing tradition. Topuria, on the other hand, stands for chaos, risk, and unpredictability. Their personalities alone make the potential clash something bigger than just a fight. It's a cultural collision: discipline versus danger, art versus raw violence. And make no mistake, the fans are already choosing sides. UFC loyalists see this as a war between worlds. Boxing fans treat it as a joke: another MMA guy who'll get embarrassed. But everyone is talking about it. And in 2025, that's the currency that matters most: attention. Topuria understands that perfectly. He's not just a fighter, he's a strategist. Every post, every quote, every face-off is part of a larger narrative he's building. He's turning himself into a symbol of the new era, the bridge between MMA and boxing. And he's doing it without the corporate polish or forced charisma that so many stars try to fake. The truth is, Topuria's confidence isn't empty. His power is terrifying. His striking, even inside the octagon, looks tailor-made for boxing exchanges. When he hits people, they don't just stumble. They drop like they've been unplugged from reality. His knockout reel could run on loop in any boxing highlight show and fit right in. And let's not forget, boxers have underestimated MMA fighters before. Remember when Conor McGregor stepped into the ring against Floyd Mayweather in 2017? Everyone laughed at first, but that fight became one of the biggest events in the sport's history. McGregor may have lost, but he proved that an MMA fighter could stand toe-to-toe with one of boxing's all-time greats and make hundreds of millions doing it. Topuria learned from that blueprint. He's not coming to boxing as a guest. He's coming as a disruptor. He wants to shake things up. He wants to drag boxing into the modern era, the age of crossover fights, social media wars, and fan-driven storytelling. And unlike YouTubers or influencers who fight for clout, Topuria's got the credentials. He's a legitimate world champion with knockout power and a global fan base that actually watches combat sports, not just viral clips. That's what makes him so dangerous for traditional boxing promoters. Because once he steps in, he doesn't just bring himself, he brings the entire MMA audience with him. Millions of fans who are used to UFC's production, to the PPV spectacles, to the constant online debates. They know how to hype a fight. They know how to turn a face-off into a movement. And when those fans start showing up at boxing events, the sport will change. Right now, boxing is running low on fresh energy. The same names, Tyson Fury, Usyk Sek, Dmitry Bivol, Artur Beterbiev, Canelo Alvarez, Anthony Joshua, have been dominating headlines for years. Incredible fighters, yes, but the stories are starting to feel recycled. The same rivalries, the same questions, the same press conferences. It's all becoming routine. Topuria could break that cycle. He could be the reset button boxing desperately needs.
Let's be honest, the boxing landscape is on the verge of a massive shift. The golden generation is fading away. Canelo Alvarez is no longer the unstoppable force he once was. Rumors about his retirement in the next year or two are getting louder. Alexander Usyk and Artur Beterbiev, brilliant, disciplined, and beloved by purists, are both approaching the end of their careers. Anthony Joshua may not be far behind. These aren't predictions, they're inevitabilities. Boxing is standing at a crossroads, staring down a future without its biggest names. And that's a terrifying thought for promoters and networks, because who's left to carry the torch? Who's the next global icon? Someone who can sell out arenas, generate memes, headlines, and genuine anticipation for every appearance. That's why people are starting to look at Ilia Topuria differently. Not as an outsider from MMA, but as a potential savior for boxing's entertainment drought. You see, Topuria isn't just a name, he's a movement. His rise through the UFC has already proven that he's more than a talented athlete. He's a showman, a natural-born provocateur. He understands the psychology of fans. He knows how to stir emotions, how to make people love or hate him, but never ignore him. And in modern combat sports, that's worth more than a perfect jab or flawless footwork. Right now, boxing is desperate for that energy. For someone who talks, fights, and carries himself like he belongs in the center of every headline. Topuria delivers all of that. He's aggressive, confident, sometimes even arrogant, but it works because it's real. When he speaks, you believe every word. And unlike YouTube fighters such as Jake Paul, Ilia doesn't need to fake his credentials. He's not a celebrity trying to cosplay as a boxer. He's a real, dangerous champion who has already destroyed elite-level opponents inside the cage. If he brings that same hunger to the ring, he'll instantly earn the respect of fans who crave authenticity. But here's the deeper reason why Topuria's potential transition into boxing feels so vital. It's not just about one man, it's about an entire audience that comes with him. MMA fans have a different mentality. They don't just watch fights, they live them. They discuss every face-off, every weigh-in, every insult on social media. They know the fight game inside and out, and they love the chaos that comes with it. They meme, they argue, they speculate. When Topuria enters boxing, all of that engagement crosses over too. Imagine millions of new eyes flooding boxing's digital ecosystem. People who grew up watching Dana White's fight nights, who are used to the intensity of pay-per-view UFC cards, and who crave the kind of storytelling that boxing hasn't delivered in years. These are fans who actually pay for fights, who follow drama online, and who turn every fighter into a living brand. That's what boxing is missing right now. Not talent, but culture. For too long, boxing has been built around tradition and hierarchy. Promoters decide who fights who, and fans just hope for the matchups they've been promised. That model worked in the past when names like Mike Tyson, Manny Pacquiao, and Gennady Golovkin kept people glued to the sport no matter what. But now, attention spans have changed. Fans want fast reactions, bold personalities, and online presence. Ilia Topuria fits perfectly into that evolution. He's not afraid to challenge the system, not afraid to call out legends, and definitely not afraid to break the rules of decorum. He represents a new generation of fighters who treat the fight game like a full-time performance, both inside and outside the ring. And here's the irony. Boxing purists might hate that. They'll call him loud, disrespectful, unrefined. But that's exactly what makes him powerful. The same people who criticize him will still watch him fight, still tweet about him, still argue in comment sections. Because love him or hate him, you can't look away. That's star power, the kind boxing hasn't truly had since the days of prime McGregor crossover hype or even the early Fury versus Wilder drama. And think about what this could lead to. The rebirth of crossover fights that actually matter. Not influencer spectacles, but genuine clashes between combat athletes who have something to prove. Topuria versus Terence Crawford wouldn't just be another boxing match. It would be a statement. A message that the old walls between combat disciplines are finally breaking down. A test of pride between two worlds that have mocked each other for years. If promoted right, that fight could be the biggest event since Mayweather versus McGregor, and maybe even bigger. Because this time, it's not about circus hype. It's about legitimacy, danger, and real knockout power.
Here's the brutal truth. Without new blood, boxing will keep suffocating under its own nostalgia. For years, promoters have been recycling the same legends, dragging them back into exhibition fights to squeeze out a few more pay-per-view buys. Mike Tyson, Manny Pacquiao, Gennady Golovkin, names that belong in the Hall of Fame, not in comeback posters. They've already given the sport everything they had. And yet, promoters can't stop milking the past because the future still hasn't arrived. That's where Ilia Topuria comes in, not just as a fighter, but as a signal that boxing can still evolve. He's not here to replace the legends, he's here to ignite something new. See, boxing has a marketing problem. The fights are still world-class, but the storytelling isn't. The build-ups feel flat, the rivalries too polite, the tension too artificial. In contrast, the UFC mastered the art of narrative long ago. Every press conference feels electric. Every weigh-in feels like a war. Fighters talk, provoke, and make fans feel like they're part of the chaos. That's the secret ingredient boxing lost somewhere along the way. Topuria brings it back. He understands that combat sports are half violence, half theater. He knows how to stir the pot, create storylines, and sell emotion, not just punches. His trash talk is sharp, personal, and always calculated to go viral. That's why every time he opens his mouth, social media explodes. And more importantly, he's not a fake. Unlike Jake Paul, who built his career on YouTube stunts and spectacle, Topuria's legitimacy is unquestionable. He's a world champion under the UFC banner, a man who's faced real killers inside the octagon. His fan base isn't built on followers, it's built on respect. Now, let's not kid ourselves. Jake Paul did something huge for boxing. He made the sport relevant again for a younger generation. He turned casual viewers into paying customers. But his influence is fragile because it's personality-based, not legacy-based. If Jake Paul wakes up tomorrow and decides to quit boxing, the whole empire collapses. Ilia Topuria, on the other hand, represents sustainability. His arrival wouldn't be a gimmick, it would be a bridge between two empires, UFC and professional boxing. He would bring in millions of new fans who are already trained to follow fight narratives, already used to paying for premium events, and already obsessed with the combat culture. That's what boxing desperately needs. Not a temporary spark, but a continuous flame. The economics make sense too. Imagine a crossover event, Topuria versus Terence Crawford, headlined by Tyson Fury versus Alexander Usyk III. The numbers would explode. We're talking about pay-per-view sales breaking records, a new generation of fans buying subscriptions, and global buzz like the sport hasn't seen in years. Boxing's biggest weakness today isn't skill, it's stagnation. Fighters like Dmitry Bivol, Artur Beterbiev, and Canelo Alvarez are phenomenal athletes, but they've fought each other in circles. The stories feel overplayed, the endings too predictable. The audience isn't falling out of love with the sport itself, they're just tired of déjà vu. Topuria offers unpredictability. You don't know what he'll say next, or who he'll call out, or how the fight will go. And that uncertainty, that sense of chaos, is pure gold in modern entertainment. It's what keeps people watching. Plus, there's something poetic about his rise. He's not just trying to make money. He's on a mission to prove that MMA fighters can step into boxing's world and not just survive, but thrive. He's defending the honor of an entire generation of mixed martial artists who've been mocked by traditional boxers for years. And the truth? He might be the first one who can actually win. Because Topuria isn't just another brawler. His precision, his composure, and his ability to read opponents are elite level. Even Crawford, as great as he is, would have to respect that kind of power. One mistake, one miscalculated exchange, and the fight could flip in an instant. That's the danger Topuria brings to any ring he steps into. But beyond the sport itself, there's a symbolic shift happening here. Boxing, for too long, has been an industry trapped in its own hierarchy, controlled by a handful of promoters, broadcasters, and outdated systems. Topuria doesn't belong to that world. He's self-made, media-savvy, and already backed by one of the most powerful fighting organizations in existence. He doesn't need boxing to survive. boxing needs him. And that's exactly why his presence is so disruptive and so necessary. With every interview, every stare down, every viral soundbite, Topuria reminds boxing what it used to be about: raw emotion, pride, danger, and rivalry. That's the heartbeat the sport lost. And if he really crosses over, that heartbeat might finally return.
Let's be real. What Ilia Topuria represents goes way beyond a single fight or a potential boxing debut. He's the embodiment of a new combat reality, where the lines between MMA, boxing, and entertainment are vanishing. The audience doesn't care anymore if it's octagon or ring, gloves or 4-ounce knuckles. They just want emotion. They want to feel something, and Topuria delivers exactly that. He's raw, confident, emotional, and impossibly calculated at the same time. That's a deadly mix, because in a world where everyone is trying to play nice for sponsors, Ilia doesn't. He looks straight into the camera and says what everyone else is afraid to say. He mocks, he provokes, but he also inspires. That's why every clip with his face racks up millions of views in hours. The man is a walking storyline. People used to say that fighters like Conor McGregor were once-in-a-generation showmen, and maybe they were right. But what they didn't see coming is someone who could do the same thing without copying the formula. Topuria doesn't imitate Conor, he updates the model. He blends the trash talk, the showmanship, and the dominance, but strips away the clownish energy. He's more serious, more cold-blooded. His energy says, "I'm not entertaining you, I'm warning you." That's exactly why he stands out. When Ilia speaks, you don't just hear confidence, you hear certainty. He's not hoping to win, he's already living like a man who did. That aura is magnetic, especially for the younger generation that craves authenticity. In a digital age full of filters, his rawness feels like oxygen. And think about the symbolism. A kid born in Germany, raised in Georgia, forged in Spain, fighting under a global flag, he's literally the perfect fighter for a borderless era. His identity reflects what modern combat sports have become: international, multicultural, globalized. He's not defined by nationality, he's defined by mentality. That's powerful. Because for the first time in years, the fight world has a star who can unite audiences, not divide them. He can talk to UFC fans and boxing purists, to Spanish-speaking crowds and Eastern European loyalists, to casual TikTok watchers and hardcore gym rats. Everyone finds something in him. Confidence, discipline, rage, style were simply results. And that's what makes him more than just a fighter. He's a symbol. The UFC gave him the platform, but what he's doing with it goes way beyond Dana White's cage. He's making people care again. He's reminding fans what it feels like to anticipate a fight not because of rankings, but because of emotion. Remember that buzz between Conor McGregor versus Khabib? That energy that made everyone stop what they were doing just to watch? That's what Topuria is building again, and maybe even stronger. Now imagine when he steps into a boxing ring. The cameras flash, the arena goes dark, and a new generation of fans, most of whom grew up on MMA highlights, suddenly experiences boxing with fresh eyes. That moment alone could reignite the entire sport. The old guard would call it a gimmick. The new wave would call it a revolution. And they'd both be right. Because boxing doesn't need another promoter's safe bet. It needs risk takers. It needs chaos. It needs someone who makes headlines even when he's silent. Someone who can walk into any press room and control it with nothing but presence. That's Topuria. He's not here to adapt to the system. He's here to bend it. He's not waiting for a title shot. He's building his own empire one knockout at a time. Every win is another brick in his legend. Every stare down, another viral storm. Every insult, another headline. If you listen closely, you can already hear the shift happening. Fans talk less about which sport is better and more about who's next. That's the future. And Ilia Topuria isn't just part of it, he's leading it. The day he finally walks through those boxing ropes, it won't just be a crossover fight. It'll be the start of something bigger, the collision of worlds
that will reshape combat sports forever. Because after all the hype, all the interviews, and all the chaos, there's one truth that remains. You can't fake greatness. And Ilia Topuria, he's the real thing.